Right then, friends, we're back inside the building. How are we doing this morning? Welcome back to Breakfast with Kovu, and we are joined on the line with a very, very prestigious guest this morning, the podcast champion, internationally recognised DJ, and just general all-round music whiz. We have man like Jaguar Skills on the line. How are you doing, my friend?
What up? What's up?
What's good? What's good? What's good? So, we've just heard that edit there of yourself, from yourself, obviously of two Mobb Deep tunes, and we're talking about the podcast this morning. So obviously you set it up. You were really kind of happy with how it came together. Obviously the big question now is, how was the response when you kind of put it out there into the world?
Yeah, good, man. I was initially semi-concerned that I was going to release, the first one I released was 1990. It's basically, every podcast is a different year, right? So I released the first one, the year 1990, and that's a pretty obscure year, but still really good for the hip-hop heads. I literally made it for the guys who were into it. But amazingly, the show was like number one on iTunes for like 8 weeks. And,
Mad.
Yeah, and then there's almost like 1 million downloads of the thing now.
Oh my word! So you are really at the kind of you've really kind of stumbled across something that's put you right to the top of that kind of podcasting tree,
right?
Which is mad.
Yeah, and really interesting because I never knew that there was a market for 90s or old. Like pretty much all the hip hop on the radio is under 6 months old. Yeah. Right? No one ever really pretty much plays anything older than that. And that is really not a representation of hip hop if you want to. There's jazz shows, isn't there? There's reggae shows that play everything, the history of reggae. There's shows that do the history of the dance music, and even like piano house, there's probably one for that. But like, there isn't for this massive genre of music.
Arguably the biggest genre of music in the world right now. I'm pretty sure it is the biggest kind of like parent genre in the world right now.
Right. And if you don't know about hip hop, you're going to think that it's just one thing, which right now is, I find like a real shame how it's turned out, to be honest. But there's a huge history of it, and seemingly a lot of people want to know about it and love it still, but don't get to hear it. And me packaging it like this, it's really cool for everybody who wants to kind of dig. It's like going to like a record and tape exchange and just digging and just finding all the new stuff. So I mean, I think people have got out of it what I got out of it when I was making it, which was like some real fun sort of creative adventure.
That's amazing though, man. And I think kind of the concept of it as well is so interesting because it's so like widely applicable. There's so many areas you can kind of take it in regards to like essentially breaking down tunes, finding those original samples and then rebuilding them from scratch. Like just to kind of break it down, how long would it take you to kind of build one of the tracks just like the one we just heard from Mobb Deep?
Right. Well, so Shook Ones, which was the first song, which is their kind of most famous song, right? Yeah. Samples this tune called Angela, or Julia, I think, by this guy called Ramsey Lewis, right? Literally, the sample is from when the song fades out at the end, right? The song fades out at the end, this jazz song, and it fades out, and just before it disappears, before you can't even hear it, these notes get played. And that's what he took, these notes.
I'm assuming that's the classic those two notes.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. But that's right at the very, very end. And he must have put it on a MPC or an SP12 and just jammed out. He must have sampled it and just jammed, and then found that loop, and then put a beat to it, right? So for him, it must have been a very creative process of him sitting there for a while, just banging out things. But to re-engineer that, and then also to kind of recreate that, was really hard.
I'm not surprised.
You know?
I'm not surprised, and I think. But when you look at it, you've got to kind of take into account, I suppose, how different kind of like the tools that were being used then were.
Right.
Obviously, you've got to try and replicate that almost perfect imperfection of the time.
Well, yeah, exactly. So the machines that they were using in the 90s kind of imbued the sample with this kind of lo-fi hiss, right? Which you can't get nowadays. You can't do nowadays because everything's so lovely and clear.
Yeah, everything's almost too well cleaned. Everything's too shiny.
Right. So to kind of recreate the actual grit of it all, coming from like a nice clean jazz record, and then kind of one of the major things is the link in between the version that you've made and then the jazz record. How do you bridge that, and how do you kind of make it morph into it without it sounding too crazy or weird or whatever?
Yeah, of course.
That's the mission, and I found that to be pretty hard too. So, for instance, that one bit probably took about, I don't know, 4 hours.
Mad.
I literally, for this season 2 that I'm making right now, I time stretched a 48-minute jazz song the other day to get one note.
Oh my word.
One single note.
Oh my word! So this is the kind of thing, though. Do you almost feel, to an extent, that you're kind of it almost feels like it's a bit of a pilgrimage in an extent. You're kind of going through this extended journey to try and replicate almost what they went through, but to an extent, even more. It's an even more extended journey because you're having to almost go further to replicate the imperfection of the time.
Right. Yeah. No. Exactly. And so I'm doing it with the whole of hip-hop, man. Like every single major record in the history of hip-hop. I've now mixed 50% of the history of hip-hop now.
That's madness. That's insane.
With all the breaks, with all the samples. So some of these tunes, these 90s songs, man, they have like 5 or 6 samples. So trying to like run the samples and create, like, for instance, it's a very obvious song, but you have to make it, is for the next season, which is coming out in September, I remade Jump Around, right?
Of course.
Because that came out in 92, okay? Isn't that amazing? That tune came out in 92, and whatever you think about that song, it's still totally, almost omnipresent.
Yeah, entirely. It still sounds like it could have been made last week.
I was thinking, man, Everlast from House of Pain. I hope he's got his publishing sorted. I hope he got his publishing sorted, you know?
Yeah.
I hope he got his writing credits, because you're living off that for the rest of forever, aren't you?
Of course. And I think that's the thing with a lot of these kind of earlier hip hop tunes as well. They're not necessarily just for listening in the record scenario. They're there for soundtracks. They're there for kind of sync deals.
Right.
There's so many times these tunes will get played in different scenarios. Even in like montages, a lot of the time you'll see them getting played. And I think that's a real point. You do really hope that a lot of these people and artists of the time were clued up enough at least to get their stuff signed off properly.
Well, exactly. But something like that, a tune like that, was quite interesting, kind of deconstructing it and putting it back together as well. And it kind of gives me a lot of... it changes my perspective on a lot of the producers and how they worked, because I can now see what they're doing. And, you know, certain producers, like... I mean, it's just given me a lot more respect for certain guys.
Yeah.
Because now I know... Like, yeah, man.
Definitely, man. I feel that's a very natural thing to happen as well, because as I said, you're going through that process they were going through. You're kind of living the same sort of extended studio hours, trying to find that exact one little clip and finding it and chopping it, and it's amazing. And I've got to say, hats off to you for the kind of time and effort you're putting into the podcast. And clearly, by how popular it's been, it seems like it is reaping the rewards. So well done to you, man. Well done.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah,
awesome.
I mean, I did it literally because I love it. You know, there's no other reason why I'm doing it. I'm not doing it to get any gigs off the back of it, or to any sort of props or praise or anything. I'm literally doing it because I love doing it. It's such a buzz. And I just hope anyone who listens to it gets some sort of same, or even half of what I'm getting out of it.
Definitely, man. Well, I definitely think there will be. I've subscribed to it since we first had the conversation about it, and I'm absolutely loving listening through it. Some of the history involved, and some of the stuff that you're able to kind of pick out. It makes for really awesome listening. So, where can people grab the podcast?
iTunes, Mixcloud, and SoundCloud.
There we go. That's what we love to hear.
iTunes and Mixcloud.
Yeah, they're probably the strongest two to grab it on. Okay, well, we've nearly run out of time. As I've said, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on this morning. It's flown by. We've been talking away for nearly half an hour already, which is an absolute madness. So there we go. Thank you for coming on the line, dude. Obviously, we'll stay in contact, and I'm really, really keen to hear about the next series and how it all comes together. I'm going to keep my eyes peeled. Ladies and gentlemen, massive shouts out to the one they call Jaguar Skills. Thank you for coming on, dude.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. My pleasure.
Good stuff. Okay, cool. We're going to finish up with this one from yourself. This one is the Wu-Tang edit that you sent over. So talk to me very quickly about what we can expect to hear in this tune.
All right, Wu-Tang edit. There was a song called I'm Afraid the Masquerade is Over by this guy called David Porter. And he's a jazz guy. And in 95, this song got sampled twice. One by the Jizza from Wu-Tang Clan, and the other one by Biggie Smalls for this song called Who Shot Ya? And I'm running the jazz break, and then both these tunes arrive throughout the different parts. So enjoy, and this one took me ages too.
Lovely stuff. Dude, it's been an absolute pleasure. One time, what's the best social media platform for people to get hold of you on?
Right, get me DJ Jag Skills on Instagram and Jag Skills on Twitter.
Amazing, wicked, man. Well, again, thank you for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show, and hopefully we'll speak again soon. I'm going to check out the most recent episode of the podcast when I get home as well. Everyone, make sure you go and check the podcast. I couldn't recommend it any further.
Hip Hop Time Bomb.
There we go.
The Hip Hop Time Bomb.
Hip Hop Time Bomb. Amazing. Right then, we're going to get into this one now. Don't go anywhere, guys. It's Breakfast with Kovu here on the Big Bad Trickstar Radio. Oh, yes.